Hey guys, I just thought I'd do a quick video on this. We had some comments after the game which haven't been really made the media yet from Jake White, and there's been a lot of talk and a lot of comments below that video I posted on Kurt the Orance's situation with Jake. And just to recap there, Jake was unhappy last Friday that Kurt the wanted to stay in Japan. There was reports on that, and he was unhappy that Kurt is in Japan. Period, and he would have hoped to have him back. Yeah, for the playoffs, etc. But unfortunately, and I mean, we've seen the same. You'll see the other videos there with the one I've done today about Ben Jason Dixon and Marnie LeBock. Coaches are going to have to find ways of letting players go overseas on sabbaticals. Otherwise, they're going to lose them permanently. At some point, the money becomes just too much, and the players want to leave. And part of that is the agents. And I think this is where I wanted to post this video, because it's not often you see a coach having a go at agents, and Jake does have a point here, because not all of them, just like in any job, you get good and bad agents, but a lot of the agents out there know it's an easy payday it's good easy commission in euros or yen or dollars to get their players overseas, and they earn that commission quite well. And with the rand being what it is, it really helps them as well. There are good agents. There are agents that look after their players as well. But I mean, I can tell you some horror stories that I know of agents, who've left their players in the lurch. And while often commission is one thing, some players just don't adapt overseas. Some players are very homesick. They're very homegrown. They don't like they don't adapt to the cultures overseas, and that's not everybody. Some of them embrace it, and some of them really become part of it. I think of somebody like Reno Smith, who is such a big feature at Benetton. He speaks Italian. He's told us on our podcast before that how he loves his time in Italy, and he's one of those players that really assimilates very well to the culture that he's going to. But that's not everybody, and so the agents do play a part. Now, the reason why I'm going to play this clip, one of the things I'm trying to bring out here, one of the things I'm trying to say is often what happens is agents take players away, probably at the wrong time. It's not as bad as it used to be back in the days of Alistair Coetzee at Springbok coach. We got to a point where literally everybody had left. Now, if you look at the Bulls side back then, and that's just as an example, and Jake uses that example quite a lot. At some point, the Bulls had Loer de Jager, Paul Willems, who played for France, Eli Snyman, who plays for Benetton now. They had Erne Herbst, who's played for Benetton and he now plays for Harlequins. They had, I'm trying to think who else they had, but there was a bunch of them. Erge was there, Jason Jenkins, they were the youngsters coming through at that stage. If you just think of that locks, and if you think of a team like Leinster, how they keep players there for 10 years, if you had kept those locks, okay, not everybody would have played, and some guys would have fallen by the wayside and looked for greener pastures. But if you could keep your top 3-4 guys there, that would make a huge difference to the Bulls. And same for every other team in this country. If they could keep, if you look at some of the players that are lost, if the Lions have kept Jordan Hendricks, they now could keep Edwin van der Merwe, and they could keep all the players that they've lost over the last couple of years. It's just there's that sort of story in every single franchise. And I think what Jake is trying to get at is he wants this to get a point where we don't lose so many players there. Rossi's worked out a system that works exceptionally well for the Springboks. But if you're a franchise coach, you're at the mercy of players and demands from overseas clubs who often come knocking. And there's a lot of that's not Rossi's job. Rossi's job is to look after Springbok Rugby. Dave Wessels, the SA Rugby Director of Rugby, or the High Performance Manager, I think is his title. It's his job to make sure that the environment's conducive. Now, how do you do that? You can't compete against the salary caps of other countries, but you can make an environment where players don't want to leave. And I think that's one of the things. I don't quite agree 100% with Jake's thing, because one of the things he says is that all the Springboks should play in South Africa, and you don't get picked for the Springboks if you don't play in South Africa. Now, that we tried that with Alistair's time as coach. It didn't work. In fact, the Boks got massacred in that time at some of those games, and really the system didn't work. Okay, maybe it wasn't just implemented well back then. I think there's a good argument for that as well. But yeah, well, let's start off with this and maybe just show you. But the point I'm trying to make is if we're going to, bottom line, if we are going to compete with the Toulouse and Leinsters of this world in the Champions Cup, then we have to be in a situation where we can field our best teams. Leinster is a team of 23 internationals, including Erke Snyman and Jordy Barrett, two other, and Russ Slimani, who's a French international. They're a team of 23 internationals. Toulouse are the same. Yeah, you look at Bordeaux, who's now made it to the final, pretty much the same, pretty much 12, 15 internationals. And when you get into that competition and those type of those players, you're going to get those teams that are filled with internationals. When the Bulls come along and they have 5 internationals or 7 internationals, and they have a team with a 21-year-old and a 22-year-old, and I know we've got the talent in this country, but when they have a team like that, you're not going to match up against those big guns. We've got lots of talent in this country. We need to keep that talent in South Africa. And Jake's point is that talent, if you keep that talent, those other guys will go play for the Cheetahs and the Pumas and Griquas, and you'll make those teams strong. Of course, there's a caveat. You have to have those teams have to have somewhere they're going to play, in some competition they're going to play in. Otherwise, those players are going to leave anyway. And that's a different argument altogether. But I do understand Jake's point, and he does have a point. What the answer is, I don't know. It's not very easy. But okay, this whole thing started on Saturday night after the game. This talk started on Sebastian de Klerk, who had scored 2 tries. Obviously, wouldn't have been playing if Kurt the Orange was there. Ronaldo Botma, who's now also comes to the media press conferences, the ex-flank, Namibian flank, and played for the Sharks and a number of other teams. He actually asked a question, and Jake immediately jumped back to the Kurt the Orange situation, and it's just worth listening to the exchange.
I'm really happy, but I'm not a development coach. I'm not trying to bring people through that I can sell to other countries, or release to other clubs. So it's wonderful for him. Some would say, well, it's nice that Kirtley goes because you produce another player. I'm not in the industry of producing players. I'm in the industry of winning rugby games. And when you look at the highlights, I've been watching social media. Obviously, mate sending it to me. I'm not on it, but have you seen what he's been doing in Japan? Now, how in heaven's name? It's like giving one of the best players in the world. When he's at the peak, and I wanted that to be worded correctly as well, Ronaldo. We pay, and specifically the coaches, pay school fees for these youngsters to learn and grow and put them in. And then when they're at the time where they should be, paying back, and I don't mean that, I mean paying back to the coach and to the Bulls and to the organisation. You want him to be running out here every single Saturday. You don't want to be waiting every year when the contracts come up for renewal that you might be losing, because all that thing just perpetuates itself. He goes, 2 years time Cameron goes, 2 years time Jan Hendrik goes, 2 years time, and then, hey, have you seen there's a guy that's playing at Paul Gym? I mean, I can't hear that every week, guys. So it's lovely for Sebastian, and I think it's wonderful for us as a group because it creates pressure and competition for the jersey. But I'm never ever gonna tell you guys, let it be, and we just accept it. We're in a country where rugby is our number 1 sport. We're in a country where we're producing World Cup champions, and we're in a country where our jobs as franchise coaches are under pressure. So I'm happy for Sebastian, but geez, I would have loved to have Kirtley Orange involved today in the 23 as well. Can you imagine?
So now that's more or less what Jake's said before, and he wants obviously the strongest team, and he wants to win trophies, and that's every coach's right to want to be that. He gets hired and fired by his team performances, and we all understand that. But we've seen other things. We've seen Manie Lebok go now also on a sabbatical. Ben Jason Dixon's in a contractual dispute, and I've done a separate video about that if you want to know more about that situation. But Ronaldo followed it up by asking, is it not the agents that are the problem? And it's quite interesting to see how Jake answered that, because, yeah, I think at times some of the agents do tend to put their commission above the players' welfare. Not all of them, as I say. There are some good ones who really look after their players, but there are a few cowboys out there. And maybe just listen to the exchange and we'll chat further.
And then just on that, there was a big story obviously this week with Ben Jason Dixon.
Yes.
I see obviously with Manie Lebok also now.
Yes.
aren't the agents becoming a massive problem for our players in South Africa to stay in the country because they're hearing in their ear they can sign bigger deals across the globe? So, I mean, how big of a problem
I wish
is
you
that?
and I could drink a beer and I'll give you about 3 hours of what I think is that. Agents are genuinely not worried about the player. I mean, they just want the deal. And anyone who tells me it's my client, and again, I want to turn this around, we are the client. Because if we don't pay the players, there is no deal. And so this thing about I look after my client, is it doesn't hold water when you're talking about the client is actually the unions who pay the salaries. And so, I mean, I can spend hours with you and say, the agents, when they've got a mandate to be able to send players overseas and still be eligible to play for their country, it's like a freebie for them. Let's be fair. No. Other agents in other countries can't send their players overseas because they won't be eligible to play for their country. And I talk that from experience because Ronaldo, when I was the coach of the box, I remember agents telling me, "You're killing my job because you're picking the same box side year in and year out." And remember those days was the Colpack deal where you had to play X amount of games before you go overseas. And agents would tell me when I saw them, you're killing our business because every year you pick the same 25, 30 players and the others can't go because they're not internationals, and the ones that are you keep picking them and they're staying here. So I mean, I've got first-hand appreciation of the fact that, when the agents have got free pass to send guys overseas, make money, and still get that player to be eligible to play for the country, then they would do it. But they're not helping the provinces. I mean, I'm old enough to tell you that if Doc Late was working, he would have called a couple of agents in and said, "Let me tell you how it works, boys. You're not going to be selling players overseas because they need to stay. Because when we negotiate deals with sponsors in our country, we need to sell them the fact that our best players are playing every week. Isn't that how business works? I mean, one of the key things that happened when they signed the Super Rugby deal was remember at that stage in 1995, there was a massive fear that all our best players were going to go and play with Murdoch and all that sort of thing. And one of the provisos of signing the Super Rugby deal was that we wouldn't send second-rate, third-rate players in comparison to the players that we had. Not for 1 minute saying the players here are second and third rate. All I'm saying is this is not the best players we can put on the field every week for 4 franchises. And I know, I mean, you guys always look at me but I'm not gonna stop saying to you, let it be. Let's accept, because it's not. I'm in the job of winning rugby games, and Toby Faletau coming off the bench is a British and Irish Lion. Our guy coming off the bench is not equivalent anything to that. So. I genuinely think, Ronaldo. I mean, I'm shouting into the hills and going, we've got to be careful, because once Kirtley goes, if he goes, we're just going to start a whole new cycle of the next generation going. And then, as I said, there's a wonderful winger at Paul Jim, and there's a wonderful, lock at Armalua, and there's whatever, But gee, there always has been. And there always will be. But at the end of the day, we want to keep the cream playing every weekend together in our 4 franchises, or 5, or 6, or whatever franchises we have.
It was then suggested to Jake that maybe money and the currencies are the problem, and players will always go for currencies, but he immediately dismissed that.
But you've got a winner here.
Doesn't.
No?
Comes to the desire to want to play for your franchise in your country.
Fair enough.
Like everyone else. There's guys in New Zealand earning less than guys playing in France. There's guys playing in France that are earning less than guys playing in Japan. So it doesn't come to money.
Fair point.
So, it comes down to the crux. Jake saying obviously he wants South African rugby to be strong. He wants his team to be strong, but he also wants other teams to be strong. Because obviously, the stronger the South African sides are, the better they can, better teams they can pick, stronger our challenges in Europe, and that will filter through to the Springboks as well. It's a logical argument, and there's nothing wrong with it. Practically, I'm not sure how you always do that, though, and I think that's the problem. And there's maybe a lack of willpower to do that at the time to work out a system. The Springboks are doing well, so if it's not broke, don't fix it. Let the main thing be the main thing. So I'm not quite sure how you do fix it, but I do think Jake does have a point. And this is not, people who go and scream in the comments, but Jake buys a team. Every team buys a team now. Professional rugby teams buy players from all over the world. I think what South African coaches have done well over the last couple of years is they found a way of bringing players back. That was the thing that we had over the years. We had that drain of that middle tier, that 26 to 29, 30-year-old player And look at the impact guys like that have made. The Kobus Wissers, who at the Bulls, Jason Jenkins at the Sharks, Andre Estesen at the Sharks. Those guys coming back and playing, not playing overseas. That's made a huge difference to the teams. And I think that's part of it. But unfortunately, until you're going to be able to go into a Champions Cup game with a squad that's as strong as a Toulouse or a Leinster, we're never going to get further than maybe the quarterfinals. It's great to see a player like Andre Pollard coming back, but these are far and few between. But yeah, let me leave it over to Jake to make his argument for himself.
Yeah, I am, but I mean, I'd like to do more, to be honest. I don't want to get to finals and I know people are comparing apples with apples because South African sides like the Stormers also don't have their best players because overseas players. And yeah, it is nice to get to with what we have, but I suppose that's the frustration for me as well, because can you imagine, and I use the names of the Bulls players, I'm not even trying to buy anyone else, Ergia, Jesse, Jason Jenkins, all those guys, Andre Pollard, that were all here when I started here, and I'm talking about just before I left, they were all playing Super Rugby. So yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is that's the utopia of what I would like to have. I would like to play Leinster with 23 internationals. Are we doing well? Yes. I mean, I think sometimes we bat above our weight, and I do think as well, and I've got to be careful because I do think it does in some way help SA Rugby because there's guys like Sebastian Lombard get man of the match, and it does give a guy like Jan Hendrik Wessels an opportunity to be man of the match against Glasgow. So there is a silver lining. But I go back to what I'm saying, is that if you're a provincial coach and you coach in a country like this, surely you want to be able to, and maybe I'm also biased because I've coached the best players in the world. I would love a club side where I can have the best players in the world playing in a light blue jersey. That's what I'm asking for is not something that is unique in the game. So, yeah, I mean, as I said, I genuinely am just banging that drum because I know how much better we can be. And imagine, I mean, this is what I don't understand. Imagine having 4 powerful franchises. And again, it sounds like I'm not talking about Free State, but 4 powerful ones in the URC, plus a hell of a strong Free State side, plus a Puma side, that's where our rugby, I'm also old enough to know, and MV will know this because you guys are, but we had SV Adeer and we had Stellaland and we had, Noord-Kaap and we had, our rugby was incredibly strong then as well without international rugby. So I generally don't think less is more. And a lot of countries go from 6 teams to 4 teams to 3 teams to, and I don't understand that because surely it's like schoolboy rugby. If you have 1,000 boys to pick from and the other school has 300 boys to pick from, chances are the 1,000 schoolboy team should always consistently be better.
So that's the gist of it. So let me know what you think. What do you think the answer should be? How should we keep our players? Obviously, we want the South African teams to do well. We don't want to deny players their freedom to obviously go overseas and do things. But you want to have your Springboks playing in South Africa. It's a decent argument. There's nothing wrong. And some of the concerns Jake has, they have to be addressed at some point. Otherwise, we're going to continue seeing Springbok players go overseas and nothing happen. But I'd love to hear your comments. I don't think it's an easy fix. I think it's a conundrum in SA Rugby that we're trying to fix and trying to figure out. And I think it's good to hear these points. Often these points come up in press conferences and it's a Friday lunchtime and you've got to get the team out as a journalist and we have these discussions that deserve more time. And I think one of the things I want to do with this channel as well is try and make those arguments and try and bring those talking points out so that we can all debate them a bit more. So let me know what you thought. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. It's great being back here and doing some of these videos. I've missed this. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.